Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Wednesdays is my good friend, Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
What's up, Andrew?
Are you pumped for Olympic basketball? Are you going to watch Olympic basketball?
I can't say I'm pumped. They haven't been exactly inspiring so far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll probably watch it.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting, but I mean, part of it's just like how prepared is the U.S. and how hard are they going to play, and are they not going to turn the ball over like crazy? And if they do that, I think they'll just kill everybody. But we all know that's probably not going to happen. That they're going to have some close games because every single year in the Olympics, there's always close games.
Yeah,
this will be the exception. So, are you rooting for Canada? Or are you rooting for the U.S.? Let's say
I'm rooting for Canada.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm rooting for Canada. I'm actually probably more interested in watching Canada.
Yeah.
Because there are two Thunder players on the team. But I'm definitely not rooting for Canada, Andrew. I would like Shea to do well. I do think it's funny. I see like actual Canadian fans like complaining about Lou, which is funny. I saw some tweet that was like, "Why does Lou have to shoot?" I was like, "Yeah, I remember that."
Yeah,
I get that.
That's part of the Lou Dort experience. Why does Lou have to?
Yeah, you just have to accept it.
Is he
Or
not
you'll go
shooting well?
crazy.
I haven't been following it that close.
Oh, I don't even know. It was probably just like that one game.
Yep.
Maybe he was just taking a lot of shots, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I mean, when you think about that team, like they really do need somebody else to step up and take shots. Like Dylan Brooks has been that guy largely for them.
Yeah. So yeah, you're either gonna have to live with Dylan Brooks or Lou Dort.
Yeah.
Taking shots.
Helps them beat the US in FIBA last year.
Yeah. So. I know he wasn't good last year, but it really was a loss to not have Andrew Wiggins. I mean, if he theoretically could ever get back to anywhere close to what he was, he would be very helpful.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And guys just play different international ball. Like maybe he could be a player that's actually good. I don't know. Because I was talking with Joe Masato and Brett Dawson yesterday about Dennis Schroeder and just like how good Dennis Schroeder is in international basketball.
Yeah.
Like he looks like a star. Like if you were to just like plop somebody down in front of the TV, like, okay, pick out the stars from these Olympic teams in the NBA, because there's several of them. I think you'd point out Schroeder. I think you'd think Schroeder was like some all NBA guard or something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's crazy where his career has ended up. How, because he turned down that deal.
Yeah.
And at least he got a decent deal from the Raptors.
He did
a couple years ago, but man,
it's rough. It's rough. Brett brought this up that the Thunder ended up dealing Melo, who we never got the Olympic version of Melo, for Schroeder. And we did get the Olympic version of Schroeder for one of those 2 years.
Yeah.
OKC. He was amazing in that second year. Okay, enough about guards. We're not talking about guards today. We're going to talk about all-time Thunder forwards, and we are going to use our friends at Tiermaker to help us do this. So I went back and grabbed a bunch of forwards that played for the Thunder. The criteria is that you have to play at least 1,000 minutes for the Thunder, or you just have to be very impactful to Thunder lore, essentially, in order to qualify for this list. Al, are you okay with just S, A, B, C, D tiers, or do you want to rename these? There's another way you want to do this?
No, I think that's fine. I'll just say that I tend to value longevity more. So like I was listening to your guard conversation, I would have had Oladipo lower.
Yeah.
Just because he didn't really impact the Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
His biggest impact was being part of the trade for Paul George.
Yeah.
Like on the court, he was a perfectly solid player for a team that won one playoff game.
Yeah.
Whereas there were other guys that I thought were just more impactful to Thunder history. Obviously, Oladipo became a better player than a lot of the guys I might have had above him, but I just didn't think his time in OKC ultimately mattered that much in the grand scheme of things.
Who else did you have higher or lower?
I mean, initially I had Tabo higher for a lot of those same reasons, but then I actually went back and looked at his stats. I was like, oh, he didn't really do that much, and also he wasn't very good in the playoffs. He never shot above 33% from three in the playoffs. Right. So I kind of understood that in retrospect, but
yeah, among the shooting guards for certainly it's a pretty rough group.
Well, yeah, I was listening to you guys and I was like, man, I'm glad I don't have to talk about that guy. And then I saw the list of forwards and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of D's. I'm letting you know right now.
I think it's a fun exercise. I mean, we're not gonna do crazy long shows, but I feel like each one of these could be 3 hours if you really wanted them to be.
Yeah.
But we won't do that. We won't do that to you guys. It's the off season. Come on. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, and this is obviously just a good place to start. Kevin Durant is obviously, he's S tier. I mean, there's just no question about it. Had he stayed and even just signed an extension and maybe even gotten traded on that extension, I think that he would probably be known as the best Thunder player ever. But with what Russ did after the KD era, I think Russ has kind of cemented himself as the best Thunder player ever. I think Kevin is the best player to ever wear a Thunder uniform, but I feel like there's a distinction there. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to the statue argument. There's a reason why. If the majority of fans believe that one player should have a statue and the other shouldn't, that says a lot about that player's standing in franchise history. So
yeah,
I agree with that distinction. KD was obviously incredible, and especially those early seasons, just getting a new. I mean, I was thinking about the Vancouver Grizzlies, how they were and it was different because they were an expansion team, but they get Steve Francis, and it just does not work out, and they never really get a player that can lift a franchise on his own. And for KD to just be dropped into the middle of Oklahoma, a place that a lot of NBA fans just did not take seriously as an NBA market, and to single-handedly lift that franchise to relevancy in those early years. I mean, that was just massive. It was massive for the franchise, it was massive for the city, and a lot of that fell on KD's shoulders because Russ just wasn't that player quite yet. It took 3 or 4 years in OKC before Russ kind of gained that star power. So, yeah, he was huge on the court, but he was also just a massive. He had a massive role off the court as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Russ was an all-star his third year in the league.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of crazy to think about. Everything happened so fast in that first era. Every single thing happened so fast. And Presti, that's how he started his GM career. Was the first thing he did was draft Kevin Durant. Just plopped into his lap. Blazers took Greg Oden. Thank you very much. I will take Kevin Durant. And then the second thing that he did was that he traded Ray Allen for the 5th pick in the draft, which became Jeff Green. And he drafted these two big versatile forwards. Where do we put Jeff Green in this conversation? He's had such a strange career just because he's never stuck anywhere. He played in Seattle that 1 year and then played 2 years with the Thunder, essentially. He got maybe 1 or 2 most improved player votes his second year, I guess, because he was 25th in most improved player. But that's the only votes that he's ever gotten on anything throughout his entire career, which has been a crazy long career. But He was 16, 6-2 with a steal per game, averaged 3 in his first year in OKC, 38% on 3 attempts per game from 3. Clearly a good player, but where would you put Jeff Green?
I'd probably put him in the B tier, and I'll
Yeah.
probably have players over him in that tier.
Mhm.
He I mean, he was solid on the court, but I mean, I think there was a reason why Presti was willing to trade like a 24-year-old wing, like I mean that should be valuable, like a 24-year-old wing who's giving you consistent production, playing big minutes, really was never hurt early on.
Mm-mm.
It was like 80 games, 78, 82, 75.
Mhm.
And then obviously he ends up having the heart condition and luckily he's able to come back from that. But
Yep.
yeah, I just don't think he was like a super impactful player. And that kind of contributed to why Presti was willing to trade him.
Yeah.
Um which was fine. Like he would on those early teams, like if they had kept him, he probably would have ended up being like a fine like fifth starter.
Mhm.
Um but that was probably going to be his ceiling with the team. He kind of had an outsized role just because that was just the way it was in those early days. Like that roster wasn't good early on. I mean, that first year roster was terrible. And
Yeah.
so he got to have this outsized role as a rookie and then a second year and third year player coming in. So yeah, I think B is appropriate.
Yeah, that first team. The top 5 guys in minutes played: Kevin Durant, Jeff Green, Russell Westbrook. Good. Nick Collison, the 4th. The 5th most minutes on the team. He played 1,700 minutes on that team.
Wilkins?
Earl Watson.
Oh, Earl Watson.
Yeah. Which he's like a fine backup point guard, but if he's playing the 5th most minutes on our team, it's not good. Kyle Weaver, 6th. And that
Yeah.
Kristich, who only played 46 games, played the 7th most minutes on that team. Yeah, they were not good, which ended up working in their favor that they were not good. Okay, Jeff Green, B tier. That makes sense to me. Also, people will bring this up from time to time that the Thunder should have just kept Jeff Green. They could have been the team that would be like the small ball revolution and all that. And I can see how you would think that, because if you put like Ibaka at the 5, Jeff Green at the 4, or KD at the 4, Jeff Green at the 3, whoever, who cares? And they act like Jeff Green would be like some Draymond Green type of player. He's not. He was never that guy. He
Yeah.
never played with that kind of like aggression and force, and like he's a good player. But if you think about the teams at the time that the Thunder were battling with, like San Antonio, the Lakers, Denver was big. Like they had Memphis. I mean, all these teams in the West were just giants, and the Thunder were just getting killed by these teams. It's kind of funny that's almost like come full circle with this franchise, is that like they didn't have a big to start this like first era, and they ended up bringing in Kristich at the end of the year, and he was fine, but you could tell like they still need somebody else. And with this era, like they didn't start this era with a big, and they ended up drafting one, but then they ended up bringing the best free agent ever into the team with Isaiah Hartenstein. It's just kind of funny. There's like some parallels that exist there
Yeah, it
with
was
built.
I mean, with Jeff, it was like if he had ever developed into a good 3-point shooter, I think it would have changed that equation possibly. But, he had seasons where he shot the ball well, uh, but it was never anything consistent. Like he never had 2 seasons in a row where he shot over 35% from 3.
Yeah.
He would have these random seasons where he'd shoot, his second season he shot 39% from 3. Great. Next season he shot 33%, then 30%, then 30%. So because of that, that was just never. I don't think it would have ever worked in like a ceiling sense. They would have never like found the best version of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next forward on my list is Serge Ibaka, who came over the same year that James Harden did, but was drafted in the year prior. He just stayed over in Europe one additional season. Um,
I think I've told this story, but I was at a Boys to Men concert at the Oklahoma Fairgrounds, and I saw Tabo, and I got a picture with Tavo, but he was with Surge, and I just wasn't confident enough that that's Surge because it was literally the first time I'd seen. The only time I'd seen him was like probably draft coverage, and then he was in that dunk contest, I think, for the
yeah, that was
Spanish
like
league
one
that
of the
I'd
only
watched.
things on YouTube with him was that dunk contest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, like, I was pretty sure, but I wasn't confident. So I should have gotten a picture with Surge, obviously.
yeah,
But yeah, you put him in the A tier. I think he is like the definition of the A tier,
yeah.
like high level role player. Like, he's perfect for that
He had the
tier.
longevity too. You know, he
Yeah,
was in OKC from '09 to 2016. You know, obviously incredible shot blocker, led the league in block shots, 2 years in a row from 11-12 to 12-13. All defensive team 3 times. Never won defensive player of the year, but was voted second in 2011-12. He got most improved player votes. I mean, just a incredible shot blocker, defender, and then like he had that mid range jumper that was just almost automatic, and never like he shot threes toward the end of his tenure with OKC, but never really turned into that guy until later. Really, like that first year in Toronto, he was like extremely valuable for them because he's blocking shots, he's shooting threes. I mean, he was almost 40% from 3 on 5 attempts per game in Toronto his first season, and then everything just kind of tailed off from there. But incredible player. I remember the first time I saw him, I was one of my first jobs out of college was I was a teacher at Midwest City High School, and they had the blue and white scrimmage at my school. Like it was like after school one day they had the blue and white scrimmage, and so I went over there and like sat in the front row, and it was like the first time I had ever seen Surge. And I remember them playing, and like there was like no reporters there. There was like nobody like really covering the team. And I remember because Royce had Daily Thunder, I remember like writing up this whole deal about like what I saw in the blue and white scrimmage and sending it to Royce in an email. Um, and I remember like how good Serge looked like from the jump. Like Serge was like one of the best players on the court that day in that blue and white scrimmage, and he looked ready. So it's just kind of funny to think back on
he's
some of that.
in 28 games for Bayern Munich in the EuroLeague. He's shooting 48% from three this season
Wow.
on 1.8 attempts. Shout out to Serge. Still averaging almost 13 and 7
Hey,
in a major league.
that's pretty awesome. I wonder if he could. I mean, I wonder if he just was kind of done playing in the NBA
It
because you
seemed
think
that
like,
way.
I mean, you think that if like the Morris twins can keep getting jobs, like why couldn't Serge Ibaka be like a third center for somebody? You know,
Yeah, he really petered out though by the end.
he
Like
did.
those Milwaukee stints just weren't really
He just couldn't.
anything.
He just couldn't move. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that can't move though. That stick around the NBA for some reason. Okay, so I'm looking at the 09-10 forwards. I think that's it. I don't think that I put Byron Don't Call Me BJ Mullins on this list because he just didn't play enough. He's
You should probably do Collison because Collison would have played more.
oh yeah. I had him. He's listed at center, but I think like he played mostly power forward for the Thunder. So yeah, he's in my forwards list. Yeah, duh. Nick Collison, Mr. Thunder,
I
played.
know it's tough. If you include his off court contributions, you might bump him up a tier. I think he's like the best of the B tier.
Yeah,
That's how he feels to me.
yeah, I think that's totally fair. Like the longevity is clearly a thing for him. Um, I mean, he helped establish their style of play too. I remember his 2 man game with James Harden. That was just almost unstoppable at times. With those two coming off the bench. So yeah, and statistically, had his best years in Seattle. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
statistically, he didn't it doesn't look impressive when you go back.
Yeah,
I mean, his first season was like 8-7. Okay, solid.
yeah,
And then he never averaged more than 6 points after that.
yeah,
But played a lot more. He played until he was 37. Played
yep.
15 games as a 37-year-old. In 2018, I like barely remember that. That's the mellow year.
Yeah, I know.
15 games.
I know. Yeah.
But he does have his jersey retired.
He's the only jersey hanging in the rafters right now is Nick Collison.
So clearly he did something.
He's
And
working
I think
for the Thunder lifer.
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out to Nick Collison. Okay. Yeah. Good call out. Because I was looking at 9-10 and he's on the centers list. But obviously today he would probably be a center only. But back then there were power forwards that were like that. That were
Yeah.
kind of these big, like rebounding forwards. That's what they were. Okay. Still, the thing that's kind of funny about these early years is like the forward spots were just locked down by Kevin Durant and Serge Ibaka, and they didn't do a whole lot. And Nick Collison, like those were their guys, and they didn't really have to go out and get anybody else. Because yeah, I'm going through 2011-12, nobody knew. 2012-13 is when they got Perry Jones III, and I cannot tell you how embarrassed I am about how excited I was for Perry Jones III on draft night. It was I thought that they had like stolen this guy. He was a guy who his first year at Baylor, going into the year, people thought of him as like a top 5 pick. Like they thought this guy was going to be something really special. And then he has to go back to Baylor, and still like you have like these thoughts of like, oh, this guy could still be some amazing forward. He's like 6'10". He can shoot it. He can dribble. His profile is like not all that different from Paul George, to be honest. But just never had it. He just could never put it all together. And a lot of that was just like this like mental toughness that he just didn't really possess.
Yeah, he is a D. Put him
He's our
in
first
D.
D. Yeah.
The first D. I was trying to see who he was close. Oh, this is interesting. So in terms of like NBA Combine physical profile,
Mm-hmm.
some of his closest comps: Luka Garza and Mike Muscala.
What?
Yeah. Like in terms of, you look at height, standing
Height,
reach,
weight. Yeah.
wingspan. He's basically the exact same size as Mike Muscala.
He's big. Clearly very different games.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember even Celtics fans when they made that trade just to dump him eventually for a second round pick. They were like kind of excited, and then he got waived before the season because he only ever played with OKC.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a D. Unfortunately, he just didn't do anything. Maybe that's what D should stand for. Didn't do anything.
Yeah. He was picked 28th in the draft, and man, he was one of those guys that if we were like doing like the Slam and Jam draft awards, it would be like, how did we let this guy get to this team? Is like what people were saying back then. The second round of this draft had some guys, though. You look back, and Jay Crowder went 34th, Draymond Green went 35th, Chris Middleton went 39th, Will Barton was 40th. I mean, this was a kind of a crazy second round run there at the
I
beginning.
wonder what the fewest amount of games played while also having a 30-point game in the NBA is. Because he only played 143 NBA games. He did have a 32-point game against the Clippers.
There's got to be somebody that just like was on a bad team and like was on a 10-day.
Yeah.
That did it. I would guess that was maybe like on the Sixers when they were horrible or something,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like 20 to 30, there just like is nobody that was that impactful. And then you get to the second round and there's like a handful of guys that were really good. But this draft was pretty brutal, like in the in the lottery. And Jeremy Lamb was obviously in this draft as well. The Thunder just found like the two sleepiest guys in this draft. Is like Anthony Davis, and then Michael Kidd-Gilchrist went second. Brad Beal, Deion Waiters. I think we watched this draft we watched this at your house? I'm pretty sure we did. I remember.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a brutal draft. And Perry Jones is definitely part of it. Okay. Let's see. Anybody else? The Thunder did pick up Ronnie Brewer, and he's somebody that I like remember, but he played like almost none for the Thunder. He played 14 games for the Thunder.
And yeah, I think I associate him with like all of those old vets that came in, like Corey Brewer, with Caron Butler.
Mm-hmm.
So like in my mind, he had like a similar level of play to them, but he did not.
No, he didn't.
As it turns out.
Yeah, hardly at all. That does bring us to Caron Butler, Tough Juice, who the Thunder brought in the 13-14 season. I did include him on this. I don't remember if he actually played enough minutes to actually qualify, but he's somebody that, yeah, he didn't, but he played 22 games. He played almost 600 minutes. So like, okay, that's good enough. I remember like being really excited
for playoff games. He almost played more playoff games than he did regular season. He played 22 regular season, 18 playoff.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That is pretty wild. He averaged 9 points per game, 3 boards, 1 assist, 40% from the field. In the regular season for Oklahoma City, he was 44% from 3 and almost 5 attempts, which just feels impossible when I think about him. And even in the playoffs, like he was 3 attempts per game at 35% from 3. Like it's not as putrid as I remember it being. He was 32% from the field, though.
What does that mean? He must have shot terrible around the rim.
He just must, yeah. He liked to take some middies too. I mean, I think he's D tier.
Yeah. I mean, put him ahead of Perry Jones.
Yeah.
We'll see what the C tier ends up looking like, but yeah, he shot 50% in the restricted area. It wasn't great.
Yeah, that's not ideal. Yeah, if he would have played like he did, but was with the Thunder for more years, I think I would have put him in the C tier. But I'm comfortable with putting him in the didn't do anything tier, just because he did not impact the team like we thought that he might.
Yeah,
because he played a lot for them and then did not deliver in his minutes. Okay. I think that's it from the 13-14 Thunder. We're going to move on to the 14-15 version of the Thunder. And this is where we have some guys. I'll start with Lance Thomas, who also didn't qualify, but I just remember really liking Lance Thomas. This is the Plagues of Egypt season. And I thought that this was a guy that could stick around in OKC. Just because he was a really good defender. He moved really well. He shot it pretty well, but ultimately he's probably a didn't do anything guy as well, just because there's no longevity there with him.
Had a really good, I mean, the fact that he was able to go on, I think he got something like a 3-year, $21 million deal from the Knicks.
Yeah.
Got paid all that money. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Lance Thomas played 22 games for the Thunder. He's another guy that I have seared into my brain, but didn't play. It started 13 games, and that was just largely just because they needed anybody to start.
He reminds me of Wiggins nowadays, a much worse version. But just when the team got rid of him, I was like, oh man, we're giving up on Lance. I was actually bummed out about it.
Okay. How many threes do you think he took total threes that he took in his time with Oklahoma City?
Well, I'm looking at it, so I know that he took 0.
Well, he took 1.
Oh, he took 1. Okay.
And he missed it. Why did
he became a shooter. His 3
I know.
main seasons in New York, 40%, 45%, 40% from 3.
Yeah, it's
Pretty
low vol.
amazing.
Why did we? What did we see? What did we see? Because I do have like these fond memories of him, but
I mean, that year we just were looking for people who just played hard, and he played hard,
hmm hmm
and that's all you could really ask. He
he's
was part of
30.
that team that beat who was it? I think it was Denver
Yeah. That was
with
early
like
on.
no one.
Yeah, yeah. That game was insane. I remember being so excited about that particular game because they were just getting killed. That was
Yeah,
only the
starting lineup. Oh, this is so nasty. I mean, just the amount of bigs.
yeah.
Perk, Collison, Steven Adams, Ibaka, Perry Jones. That's 5 of the 8 players who played in that game.
hmm
Then Lance Thomas, Andre Robertson. The only real guard is Sebastian Telfair, who played 38 minutes.
They somehow took 23s,
Yeah,
which
they got him up.
just
Ibaka
feels
took 7.
it's obviously like low for today's standards, but it seems crazy that they could have taken
That
20.
game was actually Perry Jones' second highest scoring game of his career.
Yeah, 24, 2 assists, 2 steals. Yeah. That was just a gutsy win. Yeah, off the bench, Lance Thomas, Nick Collison, Kendrick Perkins.
Off the bench, Perk with 17 in
Shout out to Perk.
19 minutes. Wow.
Shout out to Perk. God, yeah, I remember they were just off to. Remember, just everybody was just dropping like flies, and then they just struggled to get any win. Oh my gosh, what a horrific season! And still, they won 45 games, and like, God, they were within like a game of actually making the playoffs.
And I'm
Which is
sure they lost some dumb ones. I don't remember off the top of my
that's just
head.
one where you're just like, I wish you just would have tanked a little bit. You could have had Booker, and watch them just take Cameron Payne instead of Booker, anyways. But they
Yeah.
didn't have the chance. Okay, next, Kyle Singler.
Oh my God. Such a D. He's
He's at the
he's
bottom of the D list at this point, right?
yeah, just because of the investment, I think. To sign him up for a 5-year deal, $25 million. And I don't remember how long that deal ended up actually going because they did waive and stretch him, right?
Yeah, they did.
Um, yeah, just a really failed move at a time when they desperately needed something.
So he played 3 years on that deal.
Yeah.
And then they waived and stretched him, and then they ended up paying him. The last year they paid him was the 22-23 season. He was
Yeah, so it
paid
probably
basically
extended
$1
for
million
5.
a year from the team until then, which
Yeah.
honestly is a pretty sweet deal.
No, it's not. You weren't getting any production
No,
whatsoever.
for Kyle.
Oh, for him? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, of course. Yes, this is all great for Kyle.
Yeah, it's
Congratulations,
like, hey,
Kyle.
listen, do you want to just get paid $1 million a year for doing nothing over the next 5 years? Yep, I'll do that. Instead of getting it all in one lump sum, you just get to just chill for 5 years, just getting paid just under $1 million. It's a pretty sweet deal. Pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, that was listen, I know we like to bag on KD for leaving and specifically where he went. But the fact that when they finally decide to go all in, the 3 guys they bring in are Kyle Singler, Dion Waiters, and Ennis Cantor.
Yeah.
3 guys who had like no proven playoff experience in the NBA. And
Yeah.
those were the guys that were supposed to lift this team to the next level. Like if they had just gone out and just spent picks on guys that we knew were NBA players that we had seen play in the playoffs, whoever that was, just like random role players, I think it would have potentially worked out better.
Like
But we
Brook
just brought
Lopez.
in Brooke Lopez, obviously, but it doesn't even need to be like that good, that level of a player.
That was the guy though that was rumored. Like we had the expectation on that draft day. I remember like that.
Yeah,
That was all the talk. That was all the scuttlebutt. Was about Brook Lopez. And like part of that is that he, I guess maybe wasn't going to re-sign because he was going to be a free agent and he wasn't going to re-sign. And so like I get why you had no way to control that, and you were dealing for him in a year that was kind of a lost year anyways, and so you just couldn't commit to getting him. But obviously he would have been ridiculous.
Like but even I went back to that trade deadline just to see who else got traded at that trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone like Thaddeus Young, it's not like
Yeah.
he's some like an amazing NBA player. He got traded for Kevin Garnett, who was basically done at that point. He was just going back to Minnesota. Someone like him, I think, would have made a bigger difference in the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe. I think they just needed somebody that could just make a shot, like make a three.
Yeah, well, he couldn't. He didn't. He wasn't that guy.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I'm saying, like, if they were to make a trade, like, I just don't know if Thad Young would be a guy that would make threes for them. Like, I just think, I don't know.
Yeah, but they traded for Cantor when they had Steven Adams.
I know. Stash Bros.
Yeah, Bash Bros.
Stash Bros.
Stash Bros. Sorry. Stash Bros.
Stash Bros.
Means so little to me now. I don't even remember the name.
And also the most hilarious Down to Dunk intro ever, which we'll maybe just cover that on. I'll try to find it. We can cover that on.
Yeah, because you guys are going to talk about centers, right?
Yeah. Just a ridiculous time. Okay. Kyle Singler. Also, you talked about this on the Weirdo Pod, but you got some pretty good recognition for how bad Kyle Singler was on Reddit at one point.
I did. I've deleted that post since.
You did?
Along with all of my Reddit posts and comments.
Oh, okay.
But yes, once upon a time, it was like a top 10 NBA Reddit post.
Did you screenshot it at least?
No.
There's no record.
Lost time. I mean, I bet you could search it for it on like a Wayback Machine or something.
Yeah. Okay, next player, Mr. Don't Get Caught himself, Mitch McGary.
Another D.
Also,
starting to be like
he was
D for disappointment.
He was actually the first player that ever did the Down to Dunk intro. Mitch McGary was.
Oh, maybe bump him up to C then.
We had to we saw him just like sitting in the hallway waiting to get his photo taken. So this was the first media day that we ever went to. And it was me and L-Man that went to media day together. And we're walking through the hall, and so I see him and I just ask him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'd be glad to do it." And it took him several takes. I need to see if I can. I'm pretty sure I have it as like a voice memo on my phone. Let me see if I can find it, because it is so funny. He was, I mean, obviously just like the super nice guy, but just a goofball at heart. And it's a shame. It's a shame things never worked out for old Mitch McGary. Oh, here it is. I have it. Oh my gosh.
Down to Dunk podcast.
That's it.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Oh, it's going?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
This is Mitch McGary, and you're listening to Down to Dunk the Down to Dunk podcast.
That's it.
I'm Mitch McGary, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and you're listening to the Down to Dunk podcast. Go Thunder.
Love it, dude. That's awesome. Thank you.
Sorry, it's kind of slow. You want me to do it again?
Let's try.
This is Mitch McGary of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and you're listening to the Down to Dunk podcast.
It is like so Mitch. Like everything about it, like he cannot help but be Mitch McGary. And even in like that small moment, he was just so Mitch McGary. It was so
I would have loved to known what, because I mean, I'm assuming Presti meets with a lot of the draft picks prior, and like,
I mean, like, yeah.
So I would have loved to known what that was like with Mitch.
Yeah, that is like one of those, if you like, one of the like top 5 fly on the wall draft meetings that I'm just like, I would love to be the Mitch McGary one. Like, I just
been incredibly charming, I guess.
He must have been. He was a good player. Like that's the thing where he is D for disappointment, because he was actually a good basketball player. It's not like with like Perry Jones and like some of these other guys where it was just like they just weren't good. Mitch was good. and he just could not keep it together. I remember his rookie year, he didn't really play a whole lot, but when he came in, like his first game that he basically got minutes for, which was not until the 51st game of the season, they played the Clippers, and they just drilled the Clippers. In 23 minutes, he had 19 and 10.
Yeah.
And then in the next game, he played against Denver, even in almost 25 minutes, 17 and 10. And it was just like, what is going on here? And then he like played more sporadically throughout the rest of the season. He had a 29 and 2 game against Portland. A really good player, terrific rebounder, great touch around the basket. You know, he's big. He was 6'10", 255. I mean, he was a big guy. He should have made it. And if he did make it, that pick would have been like genius. But, you know, he had all the red flags, though, that all existed for him. You know, the whole don't get caught thing before he even plays a game in the NBA.
He's one of those guys where I think of him as like a kind of like do-it-all center who can't block, who's not like a great defender, but like offensively, I think of him as a do-it-all center. But he wasn't really a passer. Like he had 14 assists in 32 NBA games.
Yeah.
And in my head, he's like more of a offensive hub type of center, but he wasn't really that.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too, and some of that was maybe just like his feel for the game, just like he looked like a guy who could be a passer, just because he did have good feel. But yeah, nicknames: the Monster, White Chocolate. How can you give him the nickname White Chocolate? I'm sorry, you can't just give every white guy the name White Chocolate. You can't do that. And then White Thunder
again with the passing, like
yeah,
again, no, he was not White Chocolate.
Yeah. Shout out to Mitch McGary. I wish it would have worked out. Could have done a lot with you, Mitch. They really needed a player like that. But it was funny because they also had dealt for Cantor while they had him. So I think that they had some inkling that maybe this is not going to work out. Okay. I think that is it for the 14-15 season. The 15-16 season. They added Josh Eustace, who they had drafted in the same year as Mitch McGary, but then kept him in the G and then signed him the next year. Where do we put Josh Eustace?
He's unfortunately also in the D tier.
Yeah.
We like Josh.
Personally, he's he's somebody that I've gotten to know a little bit, and he is an awesome guy, like just genuinely an awesome person, and is extremely smart, and just like knows the game so well. And he took a very unusual deal. Like I remember on draft night, there's been several times where like you kind of say who when the Thunder takes somebody. And he was just genuinely one where I was just like what is going on here? You know, like what, like why, like who is that? Why did they take him so early? What is going on here?
I mean, it was so weird that Zach Lowe wrote an entire article about it.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy to think about. But it kind of had a feel to like some of Calvin Booth's moves now, where you kind of gave Presti the benefit of the doubt just because he had been such a successful drafter. People are giving Calvin Booth the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get a few years away from it. It's like, no, that was just a terrible move. That was just a terrible idea. I don't know what that was. Like he was not, I mean, he was arguably going to be like maybe a mid to late second round pick, if that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in a draft where there were some guys, I mean, the very next pick was Kyle Anderson. But even going further down, Joe Harris was really early in the second round. I mean, KJ McDaniels, shout out. Spencer Dinwiddie, Jeremy Grant, obviously Jokic is in that draft. Dwight Powell ended up playing a lot. But Samaj was pick number 55. The long lineage of number 55 picks. Samaj, Wiggins, Bronny. So it was just a bad pick. Bad pick.
Well,
and he did eventually get his shot. I mean, he played 69 games in his third season, so he got a chance.
Nice. He did get his chance. I think he earned it, and it just didn't work out. Like, he just didn't shoot it well enough. I mean, he was a 22-and-a-half-year-old senior when he was drafted. Like, he was a little bit older.
I know, by that season where he's finally getting his shot, because previous to that, he'd played 7 combined NBA games. He was already 26.
Yeah. It didn't work out for Houston. And it was an experiment, to a degree, where it was like, can you stash somebody in the G for a year, and have them agree to it in the first round, and then have them start their deal a year later. And I think they'll probably, and I don't know this, but my guess would be like, it was probably really hard to find somebody that was, that would agree to do that,
Yeah.
because like, I don't know. I think those are probably guys that all these guys, these early second rounders are like, no, I'm not doing that. Jeremy Grant, not doing that. Spencer Dinwiddie, not doing that. So
it's just so interesting. I mean, it wasn't like he was some wildly productive college player either. I mean, he was 7-6 at Stanford, shooting 61% from the line, 32%.
Do you think that they got on? You think they got on the phone and just said, "We'll take the Stanford kid," and they meant Dwight Powell?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I know there are guys like this, like unproductive in college, who are then drafted, but it's rare that it's an older player.
I was just going to say, it's usually like a freshman or like a sophomore that it's like, okay, we can see the flashes there. But it's like, he's just played every year at Stanford.
Yeah, like they basically wanted him to come into the NBA and basically be a 7-6 player, but just shoot better from 3.
Yeah, I think at the time it was just, can we get a guy that is willing to take a small role, because that's all we have available, and is just going to be a good defender and shoot it. Like, that's what you needed at the time. And it was a very,
I think in retrospect though, it's like, and you see this now, it's like they're drafting good players. They're just drafting talented guys. They don't care if there's a log jam. Let the best player win.
Yeah.
And drafting Houston was just like the opposite of that. It was like, we know he's not good enough to play, which is why we're not even going to let that be a possibility his rookie season. And maybe in 2 or 3 years, he can crack this rotation.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was such a low upside move from the jump.
Mm-hmm. It really was. It really was. I was trying to find a mock draft to see if
he was anywhere,
where he would even be in any of these. Let's see. Some of these are so funny. Kevin O'Connor was doing it for Celtics blog. NBAdraft.net. They only did the first round. Like, I'm just only finding first round. There were probably a lot of people doing it at the time that were just like, I'm not willing to do. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to click on this chat forum. Oh, it's this like old, like the mock draft lottery machine on ESPN. It's not actually functioning, but you can, like, I can't even find one.
Was this 2015?
14.
Right? Oh, 14. If you go to NBA Draft Room, they've got one. Let's see if he even shows up here.
NBA Draft Room. I don't even remember NBADraftRoom.com.
I don't either. Yeah,
they only go through
30. There's a second round. He was not in their second round.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, there's Mitch McGary. Plays with a ton of heart.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true. I'll give it to him. Yeah, it's wild. That was just, I mean, had that been something that was done now, it would have been, I think, just, the draft has just covered it so much more extensively today, and it would have just been like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah, they've done it a few other times. I mean, Vit Krejci was a big one, but the stake or the value play this year when he was a first round pick is just so different.
Yeah, I mean, like some people say Dylan Jones.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's probably be the close, except that he was again very productive in college.
Extremely productive, not like a 7 and 6 player or 7 and 7 player. Yeah. He was extremely productive and can do multiple things with the basketball too, which is like a big deal. Okay. The 16-17 season where we have several guys to go through. Doug McDermott, Douglas McBuckets was on the Thunder, which is just, he's more one of those guys that's like, man, I cannot believe that Doug McDermott actually played for the Thunder. And I don't know that he actually qualifies minutes wise.
He played 22 games. He's D. Move on.
He played only 22 games. That is wild. Yeah, he can go right here.
In another world where he had hung around, he could have been a classic C tier player.
Yeah, I think he could have if they would have not traded him for Melo and just like kept him around. You could argue that would have been just as effective or better for Oklahoma City, which is wild to think about. Okay, Domantas Sabonis, who played power forward primarily for the Thunder.
Yeah.
They drafted him, traded for him on draft night. That was part of the Serge Ibaka trade, which is just crazy how it led to getting Shea eventually. But
if you're including the fact that he played a role in getting Paul George and then SGA, I'm fine with putting him in C. But as a Thunder player, he was absolutely a D. He shot under 40% from the field in his rookie season.
Yeah.
He averaged 6 points, under 4 rebounds per game.
Yeah.
Like he was not impactful at all.
No.
Shot 66% from the line, which he barely ever got to. I mean, he was not a good rookie. And that wasn't totally his fault because the idea of him playing next to Steven Adams just makes no sense thinking about where he is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like he probably just should have played all of the non-Adams minutes and just been the backup center.
The problem is they had Cantor on that team too, and they had Nick Collison on that team.
Why Cantor is signing him was a huge issue. So if you want to put him in C, that's fine, but he is a D.
What if he's the number 1 D player?
He can be that. He can be the number 1 D player. I mean, honestly, credit to him for somehow holding on to his value through that really bad rookie season to the point where a team was still interested in trading a significant piece for him.
Yeah. And it worked out for them.
It worked out for everyone. I mean, obviously, Sabonis is a great player.
He's a really good player.
But as far as like
great
players who are lottery picks, he had a pretty incredibly bad rookie season compared to other guys. I mean, how many lottery picks have this rough of a rookie season and then turn it all the way around? I mean, this is a really rough rookie season. I mean, we talk about Scoot having a bad year. Like Scoot was more productive. He scored 14 points a game, had over 5 assists per game. He almost had more rebounds per game in only 28 minutes. So like Sabonis had a really bad rookie season.
Yeah.
So for him to turn it all the way around.
According to Basketball Reference, played 84% of his minutes at power forward.
Yeah.
And like that's what they had to do because of the way the roster was constructed. And I mean, we have to also acknowledge that like the hope that summer, and maybe he would have just been like the backup center on like the Horford team where Horford probably plays the 4 next to Steve-O, and then Domas is just like the backup center for them. And they would have had to have offloaded Ennis for that to have worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did not.
I still don't like totally get the vision though, because Adams, I mean, that was still like in the thick of Adams being a Thunder player.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem like they had any interest in moving off of him anytime soon. I mean, they loved Adams.
Yeah.
So I feel like they did think, like they tried to turn him into like a guy who could take corner threes
Yeah.
from the jump. And
Yeah.
I just wonder what their plan was for him long term, because obviously they moved. I mean, they moved Serge Ibaka to go get that pick, so they obviously loved him.
Yep.
But like, what was the plan long term? I don't know.
Yeah, I remember free throws being such a big thing for him.
I know, he could just never get to the line.
Through 26 games, he had taken 2.
Yeah.
And it was just like a miracle whenever he took them. And he took them more and more as he went on, but like never took more than 5 in a game his rookie season. Yeah. There was like a story that I heard about a workout that he had where he had made like a ton of threes, like made like 90 out of 100 or something. Like I don't know what the exact number was, but like there was like a workout where he just was like lighting it up before the draft. And so it is an interesting one, and clearly like a really good pick. You know, you take a guy that ends up becoming an all-star, and he's one of the better players in that draft. I mean, you look at this draft: Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram, Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's the best player in this draft, along with Jamal Murray. But it's like Dragon Bender, Chris Dunn, Buddy Hield was 6th, Marquise Chris was 8th, Jakob Poeltl is a good player, but he's 9th. Thon McCurr, who was on the Bucks, and then Domas, and then like Georgios Papagiannis was 13th. I mean, I just remember listening to Dunked On at the time and them being obsessed with Juancho Hernan-Gomez, and like just like could not believe the Thunder didn't take him instead. Siakam was 27th. He's like another one of the.
Okay, we have to keep moving. We have so many guys left. It's already been an hour.
Okay, the 16-17 season, I believe that's it. Oh no, Jeremy Grant is also on this list. Jeremy Grant is probably a B for OKC, you think? Or do you think he's A?
I might put him. Yeah, I might put him as an A. He was pretty impactful, and he played 33 minutes a game in that final season, the 2019 season.
Yeah, he played 3 years
and had gotten up to 39% from 3 that
Yeah.
season, 3.7 attempts. I mean, he was a really good. He was kind of like the modern version of what we were kind of hoping Serge would eventually develop into.
Yeah.
Just like more versatile, could shoot, was not the shot blocker, obviously, that Ibaka was. But yeah, he was a high level role player and clearly, could have been more. I think if Carmelo isn't there, we maybe see that jump a year earlier, and then his just entire OKC Thunder run looks a little different, because that previous season when Melo was there, he only got 20 minutes a game. He only started 1 game. But yeah, as soon as Melo cleared out, it just everything opened up.
Yeah. Well, he developed a ton in OKC because he was a backup center his first year. Like that's what he played, and then like was not really a wing until that second and third year with the Thunder. But yeah, really good player. Okay, let's see if there's anybody else. Joffrey Laverne.
D.
Don't
have to talk about. Let's spend any more time on Joffrey Laverne.
Shout out to Joffrey. 17-18 season. The added forwards that year. Paul George, obviously.
Is PG on here? Oh yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
He's an S. He's behind KD.
I still just can't believe that it's still just kind of unbelievable that they were able to make that trade even today. Thinking about it. Like it's just an insane deal.
Still like PG.
One of the better players in the NBA still. He's the only player left from the 2010 draft class.
Yeah, that's wild.
There's nobody else. Two-Pat.
Now, Two-Pat might be the first C-tier player.
I was gonna say we don't have a C player yet. He was good. He did not live up to expectations, but he played a lot.
Yeah, he definitely played a role. It was very exciting to get him. He's probably their best free agent signing to that point.
Yeah.
His stats are miserable. I mean, even in that first season, he only played 15 minutes a game, but he played all 82.
He did play all 82.
And he did shoot 39% from 3.
He did do that.
Maybe he is a D, but I think he's a weak C. He's a weak C.
He's a weak C. Yeah, I think that's fair. I was so pumped for Tupat.
Maybe he is a D.
Okay. Next player, Carmelo Anthony.
Okay, Carmelo is a C. I think he's
You want to put Tupat here, and then put
Maybe.
Melo here.
Yeah.
Put Melo as a C, and then Tupat down at the D level. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he's a strong D. Okay, now that he's in the D, he's a strong D.
He's looking good as a D.
He would have been a weak C.
Melo. Gosh, so many good moments with Melo. I cannot believe I can't believe he chose to come to OKC. I remember it was like Bill Simmons was the first person to talk about Melo and saying like the Thunder and Melo are circling each other or something.
Yeah, honestly, if he had just played the way he played, but had just stayed like a couple seasons, might have been enough to bump him to a B for me. But because he played a single season, he played for a team that was super disappointing in the playoffs. I just don't have great memories of that time. And so his stats look fine. You know, he averaged like 16 points a game, but in the grand scheme of things, just wasn't that impactful in really any way.
In the playoffs, he was 37% from the field, 21% from 3.
Yeah. It was super cool having him. I still really like Melo.
It was one of the cooler. He is the coolest person I've ever been around in my life, period.
Wow.
Period.
But yeah, he kind I think he's a good C. He's a good C.
Yeah, he's a good C. Okay, the 18-19 season, we have Abdul Nader.
He's a D. Shout out to Abdul, though.
Shout out to Abdul. I like that guy quite a bit.
Meaningful enough for us to talk about his drives. You know, he played enough where we had something to remember him by.
He was
his
on
terrible drives.
He was on Down to Dunk and told a really funny story of when he moved from Egypt to Chicago and how his parents dressed him. It's worth going back and listening to. I'm pretty sure it's still in the feed. He was great. He's a great guy.
Yeah, his final season, he shot 38% from 3.
Yeah.
Good moments.
I think that's it. I did not put Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot on this list. I did not put Markieff Morris. Did not put Markieff Morris on this list. Oh, okay. Deontay Burton, Hamidou Diallo.
DD.
Strong D's.
If that makes you feel better, sure, you can call them strong D's.
I honestly can't believe that Hami's not still in the league, to be honest.
I can.
I don't really get it.
It's very believable to me why Hamidou Diallo is not in the NBA in 2024.
There's some players that are much worse than him that are in the NBA today. We won't talk about that, though.
Name them. I'm going to make you do it like when people say some guy shouldn't have made the All-Star game. They're like, tell us who should have missed it. I'm going to do it with Hami, though. Fine. List out all the players in the NBA who Hami should be in over them.
I just don't understand why Detroit didn't bring him back, I guess.
I just don't think it's very hard to fit his archetype into the modern game. Like, he has to be really, really good
to
make that work when he just offers you nothing in terms of shooting.
I just like him.
Oh, by the way, they already have like 2 of those guys now with Asar and Ron Holland. So
I know. Isaiah Roby, D. There's a lot of D players. There's some people in this era that really were big Roby guys. Danilo Gallinari.
You know what? I'll give him a I'd give him a C, and I might put him over Melo.
He was
really good for a team that was good.
I'm tempted to go B, if I'm being
Wow.
honest. But
Really?
it's probably for longevity that he doesn't get higher than that. He was 18, 5 and 2. Shot
40% from 3 on 7 attempts per game.
He was
You know what?
good.
Move him up to B. Move him up to
Yeah.
B.
I feel really good about that. He was good. That was one of his last good seasons.
Yeah, that's a really good season. Man, 7 attempts per game. That's awesome.
He was one of the forgotten reasons that season was so good. Because when you think about that season, he's way down the list, but he was one of the best players on that team. Shout out to Danilo Gallinari.
Let's see. I just want to see. Yeah, it's so funny looking at how I think about. I mean, to be fair to that team, they did have the best winning percentage in the post KD era before last season.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, Melo's season wasn't that different from Gallo's season, and yet I have such more fonder memories. But it is because of the expectations.
Yeah, I was about to say.
So Melo gets dinged for the expectations, the high expectations, whereas we had very low expectations for Gallo on that team.
We actually expected to be in the lottery.
Yeah.
Year with
wow, we have so many D's left. Okay, here we go.
Darius Baisley.
I mean, glass half full on Bays. I would say, in order for them to achieve a lot of what they achieved in terms of lottery positioning, you need to play some bad players a lot of minutes and give them a lot of touches in order to make that work.
Yeah.
And without Bays, they could have found someone else, but Bays was a nice in between where he was just good enough to convince some Thunder fans that, this might actually work out long term.
Yeah.
Even though once you started realizing what kind of player they were going for, you realize that he doesn't make any sense with this team.
Yeah,
he's a terrible decision maker.
Yeah.
He gets such tunnel vision on these drives. He's not a good passer.
An adventure.
Yes, he has moments defensively, and he had moments defensively where he looked like he could be really solid on that end. He was such a terrible shooter. It was never going to work on this current Thunder team, and they continue, funneling developmental minutes into him. So the glass half empty view is man, we could have been giving all of that time to someone who might have actually made sense, but maybe they would have been too good, so
True.
Strong D is where he is right now. I think that's fine. He obviously has some more longevity than a lot of these other guys, so
yeah. His in the first tank year, he was almost 14 points, 7 boards, 2 assists per game.
That was the year where you could come up with some stat head queries that made you think wow, at this age, averaging 14 and 7, it's all these guys are all-stars.
Yeah.
NBA all-stars.
Yeah. Then in his last year with the Thunder, he averaged more blocks than fouls, and that was his stat. But
he's a truly classic good stats, bad team guy, where good stats actually just means good counting stats. I feel that's become twisted, where it's not, they don't actually have good stats.
Yeah.
They just have counting stats that pop out. He was wildly inefficient, obviously, but he had the counting stats. That is a classic good stats, bad team guy.
Yeah, under 40% from the field, under 30% from 3.
Yeah.
In that year that he had a lot of shots. Also a guy that when they drafted him, it was who is this? And why did they do this? That was definitely the feeling around Darius Baisley. And we were largely right. About that. Okay.
Always
Next.
go with your gut.
Huh?
Always go with your gut.
Always go
with your gut.
Yeah, gut was right on that one. There are definitely some characters in this next year, in this tank year. There's only a couple guys that qualify in this tier. We've already ranked Isaiah Roby. Gabby Deck, shout out to Gabby Deck, was in this.
You don't have to shout out Gabby Deck.
It was such a weird time. I mean, you talked about it on Friday, but it's such a weird time. Kenrich Williams was brought over.
Now Kenrich is,
Where do we put Kenrich? He's not D. Is he C?
I think he's C, and I might put him over Melo.
Wow.
Obviously, Melo's the better player. Melo had the better statistical season, but
you could argue that if Melo had Kenrich's attitude, he would have stuck around a little longer.
Yeah, you can tell that to Melo. The only thing I struggle with Kenrich is, now that he's kind of dropped off, you look back, and it's really just the 3 seasons. He wasn't particularly healthy. He played 66, 49, 53 games in those seasons. I do think he was impactful, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I still kind of think he should have played in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know. I kind of feel that way, too, but I maybe it's just over. So, yeah, that might be controversial. I don't really care, though. Who cares? Yeah, so I'd put him over Carmelo.
Okay. Poku.
D.
He's a D. He's a strong D.
Strong in that he's disappointing.
Yeah.
Wow, you're a really strong D.
I just like him. That's all. I just really like Poku. He is the poster child for the tank, right? Like he is like when you think about the tank, the Thunder tanking, he's going to be like one of the first people you think of, right?
For sure. Even though like Bays had played a much larger role.
Yeah.
He was like the stealth tank commander, whereas everyone looks at Poku as like the true tank commander. He obviously was terrible, but he just wasn't. He played. Like how many minutes did he end up playing
total
after that initial season? So he played.
Oh, well, his second season he played a lot too.
He played 61 games, but then after that it was like 34 games.
34, 28,
10
for the Thunder this past year.
Yeah. He's definitely a D, though.
As basketball gets more real, Poku just fades out. But like one of the more, he's just a character. He's almost like this like character within the story,
He has a great highlight reel.
He does have
you can't take that away from him. He has a great low light reel. Also can't take that away from him.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's it from the tanking Thunder.
JRE. Also, Taj Gibson is still down there.
Oh yeah, Taj D.
No, give Taj you don't think Taj is a C?
He just played. He just didn't hardly play for the Thunder.
Let me see. I guess he only played 23 games. He did start 16 of those games, though.
I'm fine putting him in the C tier. He's a good player. I'm fine with putting him there. Okay, Jeremiah Robinson Earl D.
D, like him though.
Strong D.
And still in the league.
Yeah.
I believe just got another contract.
Struggle with injuries. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he just got another deal.
That's cool.
Okay. Let's go because he was picked first. Usman Jang.
D.
Right next
I would
to
put
Poku.
him
Above Poku, right here.
Sure.
I think that makes sense. It just hadn't worked out. We can talk about him still having a chance, but that's where he belongs as of today.
I feel like you could do a pod just organizing the D tier. Which of these guys who didn't mattered the most?
It'd be so sad. J-Dub, S tier, right? Third on the S tier.
Yeah, I think S tier behind Paul George.
Yeah,
potential to move up. Absolutely.
I think he's moving up. I think he could move up as soon as this season. To be honest, I think he's going to have a really, really great season. I think at this point, looking at the people on this tier maker, it is appropriate to leave Gordon Hayward where he is.
Wow. So you think he's truly the bottom of the barrel? The thing about, as we were talking about the D players, a lot of them, all of them were not good for OKC, but some of them were also harmful. And I think So this is actually be my argument for Kyle Singler being the lowest, because he tricked them into giving him a 5-year contract, whereas at least with Gordon Hayward, as bad as it was, he allowed them to have the extra space to go out and sign Isaiah Hartenstein.
I mean, he didn't. His contract did.
Shout out to his contract, though. It's much better than Kyle Singler's contract, which we paid for a decade.
I know. Kyle was never detrimental in the ways that Gordo was, though.
There's no upside to Kyle, though. There's zero upside. Zero way you can spin that as a positive.
The upside is he was another character within this. There's like a lot of characters in the D group, you know. Like Gordon Hayward's like there's nothing like fond or like funny or anything about memories of Gordo. Like it was just like,
what about when he barked, Andrew? What about when he barked and he clearly didn't want to?
Yeah, I was gonna say it felt very forced. He clearly didn't. He looked like he was visibly pouting during the playoffs.
This is why this is why he and Kyle Singler were 1 and 2 on my big board for the weirdo draft.
Yeah.
Shocked I was able to get both of them because Taylor went for Lazar Hayward.
That was
just because the guy believes in ghosts.
That was like the most Taylor thing ever, was to pick Lazar Hayward number 1 in the weirdo draft. I'm leaving Gordo off. Like maybe this is recency bias that exists, and that's fine. I'm fine to have recency bias, but my vote is to keep him down below the D list, because
I would move
one part of the reason why I would say that is because I think he can still play, and he just didn't. Like I genuinely,
the NBA seems to not think that he can still play.
Here's the thing: all he had to do was shoot the basketball. Like just shoot it. He wouldn't even do that. Took 1 shot in the playoffs. 1. There's just no way. I'm keeping him off.
I think Lance Thomas should be higher.
You think Lance Thomas should be higher?
I think he should be above
here.
Yeah, like right there.
I think that's absurd, but I'll go with it.
Caron Butler.
I think that's insane, but we'll go with it. I think I think that you're thinking about the Knicks Lance Thomas within that. Like that's a package.
I might be.
His like 22 games with the Thunder were not that good.
I disagree.
But I'll give it to him. Okay. Do we feel good about this? Our S tier, Durant, Paul George, J-Dub. Our A tier, Ibaka and Jeremy Grant. I guess just because of longevity, because I'm thinking about Gallinari. Like Gallo had a better year than Jeremy Grant ever had with the Thunder.
He did. That's not wrong. Why don't we just move Gallo into the A tier? No, don't. Maybe Gallo should be at the top of the B tier, though.
I think I can't move him above Mr. Thunder. That's just really I just don't know that I could do that. B tier is Nick Collison, Gallinari, Jeff Green. C tier, Kenrich Williams, Carmelo Anthony, Todd Gibson. That's the weirdest group of players. And then a lot of D players in this tier. Domas is at the top. Jeremiah Robinson, Earl, Oos, Poku, Tupat, Bays, Lance Thomas somehow got moved up in this list last minute. Tough Juice, Deontay Burton. Shout out to Deontay Burton. Hami, Nader. I feel like all those 3 are just like all tied together. It's like maybe one of Deontay, Hami, and Nader is going to work out. And it's like, no. Isaiah Roby, Josh Eustace, Mitch McGarry, Douglas McBuckets, Joffrey Laverne, Perry Jones, Kyle Singler, and then left off our list entirely is Gordon Hayward. Also, we had so much expectation for Gordo. Like we just thought he was going to be good. That
was our fault.
No. He played. He like did things. He shot
for a terrible team, for an awful
I know, but like, why couldn't that? It should have translated. I'm still mad at him about it.
I'm mad at myself for ever believing.
I'm not mad at you at all. I think you did the right thing. I think he did the wrong thing. That's why he's left.
We thought the only downside is if he get injured, and of course he stays healthy the entire time.
Stayed healthy.
He would have been so much more helpful if he had gotten injured, because then they wouldn't have played him.
Then they would have just played Wiggs more or something.
Yeah,
which would have been way better. Okay. Let us know what you think of the list. Let us know in the comments on YouTube. Please, if you're watching here live right now, like the video. Hope everybody's doing well. Let us know on Twitter your thoughts on our tier maker forwards, all-time Thunder forwards list. Hope everybody's doing great. We'll be back on Friday with a regular Fry pod, and we will talk to you guys again on Friday.